I'm Anna Chanduvi. I've worked in sports media and broadcast pretty much my whole career, starting at the NBA as an intern, working in media distribution and TV rights sales, then moving to rights acquisition and content strategy at beIN Sports, where we really looked at building a centralized acquisition strategy for the content across all the different beIN Sports regions. One of the things that we were starting to explore while I was at beIN is how do we work with and partner with social platforms in a more effective way and impactful way to help further our business goals and objectives, and to make our customer acquisition journey and targets, to hit our targets more efficiently. So within that exploration, we started looking at different types of partnerships and trying to find the balance of how do we spread our content across our O&O, but across all these third-party platforms in a way that doesn't cannibalize our own exclusivity, but that really helps us reach a new audience that we can then monetize in some way or another. Because as we all know, sports rights are incredibly valuable and it takes a lot of resources to produce content. So we had to really make sure that it paid off effectively. So that being said, I then joined Facebook, where I now lead our sports partnerships team across the EMEA region, looking specifically at working with broadcasters, digital publishers, free-to-air broadcasters, pay TV, and helping them drive their business goals and objectives across our family of apps. Whether those be helping them reach new audiences, young audiences, female audiences, to helping them drive more efficient conversions to their O&O or direct-to-consumer businesses, building out branded content strategies across the digital assets that they've created and the audiences that they've built across our platforms, to helping them generate incremental revenue through our advertising and in-stream products. And I'm part of a larger sports team in EMEA. I've got colleagues that work across teams and clubs, leagues and federations, and athletes. So we really try to cover all potential verticals within the sport industry, and really help each one of those different segments maximize the value that they're generating from our platforms.
Fantastic. We'll talk a lot about the different examples that you might have. There's recent case studies where you've worked with different broadcasters, federations, clubs, and athletes to, as you say, kind of maximize their reach and also monetize content as well. I think a lot of people think with Facebook, oh yeah, they can do live sports streaming, and what more is there to say or do? And actually, having chatted to you, there is a lot and a lot of different ways, as you've just explained, of getting content to different audiences and really, using that platform to make the most of your content. So I guess I could hand over to you to give us some examples of how you're innovating in this space. We, just to prompt you on a few things, we talked about boxing on Sky Sports and generating a kind of new audience for that using Facebook. There's the women's sports that you've worked with BT Sport and Sky Sports to get that content again out. I think it's WSL live streams through Facebook. There's stuff with DAZN about storytelling around boxing, using a documentary that they'd already created and putting out little snippets of that to, again, sort of tease the audience and bring them over to their platform. And then there's a really interesting example with the UFC as well in Germany. It didn't have a broadcast partner, so it was using Facebook as a kind of an alternative platform, I suppose. But yeah, I'll hand back over to you, Anna. And if you want to sort of explain, a little bit more about these case studies, that would be great. Yeah,
for sure. And before kind of diving into those case studies, I kind of want to set the scene in that with each one of those examples, it was really partner-led goals and objectives first. Each one of them had such a unique use case and business case that they were trying to drive. And that is really how we're looking at positioning ourselves as a platform. We're here we represent the largest community of sports fans in the world across Facebook and Instagram. There's over 1 billion sports fans across our platforms that come and interact with content on a daily basis. This is where passions are formed and cemented, where you speak to your friends and your family. Athletes get to communicate directly with their fans in a very intimate way. Broadcasters get to build communities through groups and other forms. So the tools are there, and it's all about how the publisher / sport organization or entity looks at activating those different levers that are available to them to drive their business goals and objectives forward. A lot of the goals that we do have are always rooted in audience development. And when we talk about audience development, we mean around the next generation of fans / paying customers that a sports organization would want to develop. So as you mentioned, for example, with Sky and BT, and also actually a lot of broadcasters that I work with, including the BBC and beIN Sports and others, for them, reaching female audiences has become a key area of focus and an untapped opportunity. It's no secret that, majority of paying customers in sports are male and are of a certain demographic. So as they're looking at expanding their businesses and reaching those new audiences and hopefully turn them into paying subscribers, they ultimately can fish for those audiences and fans across our platforms, because that's where they're congregating, that's where they're engaging, and ultimately starting to form those passions. And I think both of those, I'll start with the BT example. They've been super smart with how they've approached reaching a women's audience, and that's by acquiring WSL rights. They had the rights last year, and they were really looking at spreading awareness and driving tune-in to their broadcasts. One of the things that they did is around the biggest tentpole moment within the WSL, which was the opening match, Aston Villa versus Man City, after almost no live sports in the spring and in the summer. They decided to create as much buzz and awareness around that live. So they streamed it live on Facebook. They cross-posted it with Manchester City and the WSL to maximize the reach. So cross-posting is really a great strategy to make sure you get as many eyeballs as you possibly can. And what they've seen is that 94% of viewers that watched for 1 minute were non-followers of BT Sport. So the majority of people that were deeply engaged with that broadcast were not existing fans of the page, which again tells you those 94% represent people that you can now potentially retarget, bring back into your ecosystem, and then make sure you continue to entertain them, make them loyal and returning viewers of your page, and then hopefully continue driving them down that kind of conversion funnel and make them paying subscribers of your products and services. Especially when you're bringing new fans on board and you're trying to turn them into those paying subs, it doesn't just happen overnight. I think the days where someone sees someone who hasn't been a fan before, hasn't been a paying subscriber before, simply seeing an ad won't be enough to kind of get their wallets out and pay for a subscription. So you really need to incrementally build that experience, cement that fandom, so that you can then turn them into loyal customers and paying subscribers of your services. Same with Sky Sports. They have an incredible strategy around women's sport, and they're very, very dedicated to growing the exposure of women's sports across the board, from making sure they've got female pundits to really looking at storytelling and diversifying their content strategy. They had the Katie Taylor and Gutierrez fight in November. So they streamed that live on Facebook. And similar story, like with the BT example, the majority of the viewers were unconnected audiences, so non-fans of Sky, but they're also female audiences. So that really shows that by creating that opportunity for fans to come and engage with your streams, you can really kind of start engaging them, and then hooking them into to become more loyal audiences of your pages, and especially with a property like women's sports.
Did in both those examples, did the entire football game get streamed, and did the entire boxing match get streamed as well?
Yeah, both were streamed in its entirety.
Right. Okay.
It's not just about like turning on a live stream and then I'm done. It's around how do you drive tune into those live streams, and using things like Facebook or Instagram stories, post kind of, some tune in ahead of the game to drive kind of that audience, try to set up those cross-posting relationships. If you've got access to the athletes, like, can you get them to kind of give you a shout out and say, hey, this is coming up, don't forget to tune in. It's kind of doing the work beforehand as well, because the benefits are there, and they will be ultimately, you'll experience them. And one really cool stat that we just kind of saw last a couple weeks ago, that 38% of women's football fans on Facebook are under the age of, I'm gonna just double check are under the age of 25. Right. So we know that those audiences are young and they're there. So they're on social. So how can you start engaging them on social where they are, especially on Instagram as well, and then pull them into your subscription ecosystem?
And do you know how many would have kind of literally made that leap across and maybe become subscribers, or is it more just about the kind of awareness at this stage, and then kind of working with the client to solidify those kind of new subscriptions and things?
Yeah, it's definitely around, it's hard to kind of lure someone into your paid offering if it's always behind a paywall. Yeah. Giving them a bit of flavor of this is what our storytelling looks like. This is how this is what women's boxing presented by Sky Sports looks like. The type of, analysis that we do, the punditry that we do. And that really is the value that broadcasters bring, and that rights holders very much appreciate, is that expertise and the type of storytelling and shoulder content that they're able to provide around one of those moments. So by showcasing some of that flavor and bringing people in through that approach really kind of is an effective way to say, hey, there's a lot more where that came from. And we've got really great stories, and we've got a lot of amazing content behind this paywall as well. It's building that appetite and giving them little like samples and tasters. That's important. And just to kind of double down on that point, it's not just about going live every once in a while. It's around how do you engage them on a regular basis, and really make sure that if they've seen something live, on Friday, how are you going to make them come back on Sunday, Monday, and the weeks after that? The longer viewers come back to your page, the better ultimately also from an algorithm perspective your distribution is. You want to make sure that you drive loyal and intentional audiences. And that's one big shift that we've done as Facebook. Facebook 5 years ago was probably all around news feed, being viral, short clips that catch your attention. Now with Facebook Watch, which is a dedicated viewing destination, it's all about that intentional viewing, making sure people come back and actually seek out your stream and your broadcast or your content.
And what kind of things can the kind of sports publishers do to enable that regular set of content? Things like what DAZN did with the build-up to the Anthony Joshua fight. Is that the kind of things you're thinking about?
Definitely. And I would love to also, touch on monetization. I know we just spoke about audience development for quite a while, and the audience development best practice is really just publishing on a regular basis, making sure that you drive 1 minute views. 1 minute views is a super important metric to kind of assess the performance of your content, and that people are actually sticking around to watch the whole thing. Loyalty and intentional viewing, overall watch time, a lot of those quality metrics that tell you that someone's actually coming out and seeking your content on a regular basis.
So a minute view is considered a kind of a stick with type of.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely we encourage publishers to post as much like minute content that's over 1 minute, especially over 3 minutes, because that's when they can also monetize at a highest possible CPM.
Right.
They've got ad breaks inserted on their streams. But back to kind of the monetization point, like I just spoke a lot about audience development, which is great. And it's nice when you reach those audiences, but increasingly publishers want some form of ROI from their content.
Yeah.
And especially now in the world of COVID, where so many business models are challenged and there's a lot of pressure to drive revenue, we really are quite positive in that we can help provide a lot of those opportunities to partners. And especially the DAZN example, their main goal is driving subscription, their subscription business, and their whole premise, their whole incentive to posting on Facebook and Instagram is to ultimately drive users back to their subscription business where they can monetize them most effectively. So one of the things that they do is they, and it's not only DAZN, it's most subscription businesses like Netflix and Disney that really use our tools and our products to drive more efficient subscribers to their O&O. But the DAZN example specifically, they had this, they had the Anthony Joshua Ruiz fight last year, or 2019, end of 2019. Yeah. And they created a really amazing documentary with Sylvester Stallone and a lot of other boxing legends, kind of in the lead up to that fight to create momentum. And they posted long form clips. So long form for us is 3 minutes. 3-minute type clips of the best type of storytelling ahead of that fight, to build that appetite and that flavor among their users, to show like this is what DAZN storytelling looks like.
Yes.
And posting that on a regular basis, they were then retargeting viewers of that content with subscriptions to their OTT and with like a call to action to download their OTT app. So they were able to manage their spend effectively because they know I'm spending to target the most engaged viewers. I'm targeting people that have watched this documentary. So I know there's an interest there. Can I target the ones that, and by the way, you can do this on Facebook without getting too technical. It's called custom audiences. So what you can do is like upload your database of these are my paying subs. Can I retarget viewers of that content and exclude people that are already subscribers?
Right.
So you basically kind of pull in the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And they've seen a very efficient return on ad spend when it came to driving subscribers to their O&O ahead of this major moment within their sporting calendar.
That's a really clever idea because obviously that's content they already had and they'd already created that documentary. So it's kind of repurposing it and then using it to then find an audience that is engaged, and then you can target and convert them over. Very nice example. We have a couple of questions actually that have come in just over the last few minutes. So I'm going to ask those and then we'll continue with our conversation. Just also a reminder to everyone that is watching that if you want to ask a question, get it on the comments thing and we are going to ask these. So first one, Anna, is how has COVID impacted Facebook traffic for football and sport? Do you see an uptick in esports IP on Facebook and Instagram? Actually, it's a good question in this current climate.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I'll take the COVID impact more generally. We've seen as a lot of digital streaming services and social platforms an increase in consumption of video across our platform. So we just announced that Facebook Watch hit our over 1.25 billion monthly active viewers, which we were quite pleased with considering we just launched Watch about 2 years ago. Same with Instagram and the new surface we launched, Instagram Reels. We're seeing a lot of increases essentially in views and engagement. But specifically to that question around football, but sport in general, football is the largest sport across our family of apps. And especially when we're talking about women's sport as well, the women's football community is the largest across Facebook and Instagram. But we do see more football publishers, whether they're clubs or leagues federations or broadcasters that have football rights really looking at, again, using those and using highlights and archive and a lot of shoulder content to kind of continue growing an audience and engaging an audience on Facebook. One of the really cool things that FC Barcelona did when lockdown first happened and there was no live sports, they kind of did a Money Heist series where they had a lot of the Money Heist characters do like Q&As and stuff with players. So just really kind of creative content and storytelling that's tapping into kind of the cultural relevance side of things as well, and not just relying on their sports. Because again, going back to that point I made earlier, that's where you kind of fish for those fans. So how can you create content that helps you get in front of those eyeballs that, you know, might not already be there and watching your highlights per se. But regard to the esports piece, yeah, we've got a gaming surface actually on Facebook as well, though we don't really talk about that much, but it's essentially gaming content is surfaced within that gaming tab. And Goal is a digital publisher, goal.com. They publish a lot of really great content. One of the things that they did also when COVID first happened and there was no live sport, they started streaming kind of FIFA 20 simulation games of some of the biggest rivalries live on Facebook on a regular basis. Yeah. They did that every Sunday in the afternoon, every single week, kind of on a regular basis. Right. And then they were then able to get EA on board as a sponsor of those live streams. And they were streaming those games to the gaming surface, and they were able to acquire a brand new audience from gaming. So people that started watching those streams are actually like the flip side. They're gaming fans that would watch that stream because it's gaming and it's entertaining. So you can also kind of pull audiences in from that side as well. So that's kind of really also what Facebook and Instagram represents. It's like there's so many communities out there that you can tap into and get in front of and really kind of bring them back into your own ecosystem and then monetize them, whether it's on our platform or on our publishers' platforms.
Yeah, what's the difference for Facebook and Instagram in terms of the kind of approach? I mean, the demographics are a bit different, aren't they? I think Insta is skewed more towards a younger demographic, and Facebook seems to be a slightly older demographic. What about the 3 minute thing you were saying, like long form? Is that for Facebook and Insta, or again, is that slightly different in terms of monetization and stuff?
That's a good question. It's for Facebook Watch, ultimately content, Facebook, if you want to optimize for Facebook Watch, so make sure you get as much distribution as you possibly can. If you drive 1 minute views, as high overall watch time, and loyal viewing, which means people coming back on a regular basis to watch your content on your page. That's ultimately what we call best practices. The reason I say plus 3 minutes is that content typically performs the best. Also, in terms of ad breaks, there's an ad break that's inserted usually after when a viewer watches for 1 minute. And the CPMs on content that are over 3 minutes are usually the highest. So 3 minute content typically performs the best in terms of best practices, but it can also monetize at a higher CPM. Yeah. For Instagram, it's really kind of, it depends. So we would say like IGTV is more, content that's more around storytelling, longer than 1 or 2 minutes. Instagram Reels is all about trends and short form. Instagram Live is more around, deeper storytelling around a specific moment. So it's probably less kind of prescriptive than I would say the plus 3 minutes thing on Facebook, but it's still around, how are you using all those different surfaces available to you in a way to kind of drive your audience and monetization objectives.
And with the monetization, you've got the ad break. That's one of the things that you could use to monetize. And then there's pushes to kind of merchandise and tickets to events, those kind of things. were some of the examples where you've worked with sports partners to, I suppose, get that different monetization options all sort of tied together into the content they're putting out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we kind of talk about this as on-platform monetization and off-platform monetization.
Right.
On-platform is like money that you make of content. It's like incremental. It's nice to have. Mm-hmm. You're monetizing the content that is already on Facebook. And but with off-platform monetization, it's really all about conversions. One of the examples of conversions was the DAZN one that I just spoke about. But there's others, especially in regards to shopping on Instagram. Every service on Instagram is now shoppable.
Right.
Which means that, you know, as a brand or as a publisher, if you've got an online store, you can now sell those items through your any Instagram service. And we've seen most football clubs essentially really kind of sell a lot of their new kits and do kit launches across different Instagram services. FC Bayern München is a great example. They really kind of built a shopping business across Instagram and really kind of use their content to sell their merchandise, whether it's new kits or potential partnerships that they did. They did a really cool post with around like muesli, where they launched that through one of their athletes. Right. I forgot his name. But another example is Barstool Sports, which is a digital publisher as well. They have an online store across Instagram, and they've got their own merch. So one of the things they did, similar like DAZN, they retargeted their most engaged viewers with a call to action to buy something from their store, and have seen really positive results there as well. So it's all around, you don't want to be too much in your face of buy stuff, buy stuff, buy stuff. Building that engagement and that audience really is such an important first step. And we've seen publishers that have kind of whatever your business objective is, whether it's making money through ads, getting more subscribers to your OTT businesses, selling jerseys and kits. The first step is really around building that audience and making sure that they're engaged with you and loyal to your content. And then you kind of hit them with those deals and promotions and opportunities to kind of purchase stuff. So it's quite important to get that balance right.
And you've given some great examples already of how to do that, and the sort of things that I suppose the algorithms that Facebook are looking for to keep that content, you know, at the forefront of their audience. We're slightly pushed for time by the looks of it, and I've got a few more questions I want to ask. I think we might go over a little bit of the allotted time that we have. That's okay, Candice in the background. But I just wanted to ask, actually, because we talked about this before the session started. For sports publishers, there are obviously certain ones that you can directly work with that you can help out, really maximize the monetization side, the content side, the regularity of that content, all the kind of things that you need to do on Facebook to maximize your reach and return. And then there are others that you've obviously, because it's a relatively small team, it just isn't possible to work with. So how do you kind of sort of scale that learning with the ones that you can work directly with so that your entire sort of client base can benefit from those kind of lessons?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that we get quite a lot. But a lot of the case studies that I've spoken about today and so many others are publicly available on our blog posts.
Right.
There's also so much free training, webinars, video tutorials that kind of help share a lot of those best practices that I just mentioned around, you know, loyalty and 1 minute views and watch time. If publishers feel lost around, okay, I don't know what to do and what works and what doesn't work, like how do we get started? Really kind of making sure that you use those available resources is really kind of a good first step. Another plug that I want to throw in here is Creator Studio. Everyone that has a Facebook page has access to Creator Studio, and you can get really great insights around your content. They also share tips and best practices around what each insight represents. There's also a new tool that we've got available. It's called A/B testing in Creator Studio, where you can upload 2 to 4 versions of one piece of content with like the smallest things tweaked. You can tweak like the caption, the first 2 seconds of the video, whatever element you want to kind of test. And then that A/B testing tool will tell you, this is the version you should go with. This is the version that's likely to get most eyeballs and So taking the time to kind of understand what your audience wants and what they're looking for is super important. That really is kind of the first step to navigating the platforms.
Really useful advice. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. Right, here's one. Are there any particular rights challenges that third-party rights owners may face if they to stream part of their portfolio on Facebook Watch? Very good, very specific question. Yeah,
I would say with third-party rights owners, I'm assuming you mean rights holders that have the rights. If they have the rights, then they're okay. Ultimately, I'm going to go back a couple steps. We're very much focusing on protecting IP owners on Facebook. We've got a tool called Rights Manager that leagues and rights holders can onboard to make sure that their streams are protected. They can whitelist their partners, whether those be second or third party rights owners, to make sure that they ultimately are posting the content that they should be allowed to post.
Right.
We are very focused as well on doubling down on IP infringements and copyrights. And our kind of approach is that if you don't have the rights, if they're not cleared, don't go anywhere near them, because it's such a risk for you and your page to get demonetized. Your distribution is affected. So we're actually kind of implementing tools to make sure that content is downranked, and publishers sometimes get blocked from ever posting again.
Right.
So we're really looking at penalizing like IP violation across Facebook and Instagram, while rewarding content that is original and that drives loyal viewing. And so that's kind of where our approach to date. We've still got a long way to go, but it's something that we're very, very focused on, and that's obviously important to our partners as well.
Okay, good. That's answered that one. There's another one here, which I think we've still got time for. How has the expansion of Facebook fan subscription service gone? That's question one. Is Facebook focused on building this out with more partners? So again, connected.
Yeah. So fan subscription is a product that we offer on Facebook for, again, incremental monetization. So where publishers can create those fan subscription offerings to their most engaged communities, and they can charge anything of like $1 a month to $5 a month, whatever they want. And it was intended for creators. So especially like if you're a yoga teacher and suddenly you can't teach live anymore, fan subscription is a really good offering to start building that audience online that you can start monetizing as well. We've seen a lot of football clubs start testing fan subs, and they posted more kind of exclusive behind the scenes type content on Facebook behind that fan subscription for their most engaged audiences. So we've seen them use that. Another kind of tool / monetization product we launched is paid online events, which is pretty much like a pay-per-view type service that has worked so well for niche sports, from like jiu-jitsu to world's strongest man to women's volleyball in Italy. They've all used paid online events to drive more revenue from a live stream that they did on Facebook. So just to kind of explain what that is, it's basically if you've got a live game or any type of live event, match, fight, whatever it is, you can put a subscription wall or a paywall in front of that. And it basically looks like one of those typical Facebook events that users can click on and join. And in order to join and attend and watch the stream, you need to pay whatever the fee is. So in places where they don't necessarily have broadcast deals, but yet have all this content that they want to monetize. Paid online events has been a really good tool, especially for niche sports, as they're looking at monetizing some of the rights that they have.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Anna. It's been amazing insights, I think, across everything, to the content and engagement with fan base and all those questions at the end as well. Thanks for everyone's questions. I hope you really enjoyed that. And yeah, thanks very much, Anna. We'll have a short break now. So I think we've got about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll have the next session on. So thanks again, Anna. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see everyone back in about 10 minutes.